welcome everyone to the Best Damn Podcast. I am your host, John Keene. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. Ask that you please add, follow, and check us out Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn, and make sure to hit that like, share this link. It helps me to get it out there. That way other people can see. And subscribe if you have not already. Hold on, why don't we get this playback here? Hold on, guys.
Make sure to hit that like.
I have no clue where the playback's coming
It
from.
helps me to get it out there. That way other people can see.
All right. Let me know if you guys can hear me and you can see me and all that good stuff. Can everybody hear me and see me in the chat here? This is... Yes, all right, thank you. I don't know where the playback was coming from right there. That was really weird, actually. Hopefully I'm coming through clear. Tonight, it's just another, it's kind of like rainy and dreary here in Cincinnati, but it's been really beautiful weather. You know, I don't know how many of you guys I get so excited whenever summer starts because, it's like we finally get to be back outside after being fucking cooped up, all winter long. And here in Ohio, it rains so much in the springtime and shit. It's really, it's not that awesome. Plus, it gets pretty cold, too. So tonight we're going to be talking about consciousness and probably a million other things because I never seem to be able to stay on topic. I recently started reading, which came to me by a suggestion from a couple of people over on Facebook, the Celestine Prophecy. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of the Celestine Prophecy or Celestine Prophecy. And tonight, too, it shouldn't be a bad one, even though I'm outside. I went to a well-lit area so we don't have a bunch of loud traffic and shit. I do live in the city, so, sometimes it does get loud when I do the outside videos and stuff. I'm trying to get back into doing content. If you guys haven't checked out my tarot videos, they do really well over on Facebook. Check those out. Check me out on all the other platforms and all that good shit as well. Hopefully we're coming in clear, loud and clear. Hopefully the picture is clear. Sometimes when the stream first gets started, it can be a little grainy until it settles in with the latency and all of that. Everybody make sure to hit that thumbs up. Share the links, all of that good stuff. It really does help me like a ton. So I wanted to talk about critical mass, when it comes to consciousness, and this is something I actually talked about way before I ever read this book, the Celestine Prophecy, And it was like years ago. You guys will probably remember, especially like when I first got started doing this, within the last decade, we have seen such an exponential shift when it comes to consciousness and when it comes to the amount of people that are aware, as opposed to in the past. Yeah, James, James, you've been around for all of this as well, and I can see the chat too. And when you really think about it, if all of us are essentially anchors, right? We are conscious anchors, we're conscious co-creators and manifestors and every other fucking cliche thing you can think of, right? And that means we are spiritual antennas. We are constantly projecting an energy, okay? We're constantly projecting an energy. We're constantly giving off a field. An electromagnetic field, an energetic frequency. And if one of us begin to have this awareness, and think about it too, over the last 1,000 years, right? 2,000 years, however long, right? Over this last cycle, the Piscean Age. The Piscean Age has been all about duality, right? This has been the age of water, the element of water. We are made up of 80% water. The earth is made up of 80% water. When you look at the, what we would call the spiritual text, and different spiritual texts from the Bible and so on and so forth, It refers to the Piscean age beginning with the Great Deluge, or what we would call the Great Flood, right? This Great Flood was um, a dip in consciousness, a lull in consciousness, if you will, right? And a lot of people seen it almost as like a punishment of humanity for being perverse in their way of thinking, and all of these different things. Which that is the religious perspective, if you want to look at it from a point of religion, you know which I do not. But within this perspective, we see that the Piscean age, we went into more of a physical mindset, as humans. And within this mindset, we learned how to master our physical reality. During the age of Pisces, we mastered steam. We mastered all of these different things during what we call the Industrial Revolution. We can look back at past ages and past cycles, such as the age of Aries, which was an age of fire. And this will give you, and sort of like an idea for the age of fire would be like Moses, right? Seeing the burning bush, right? Up on Mount Sinai. And then we look at the age of Taurus. Prior to that, this was a Venusian age, an age of divine feminine. Each one of these ages cultivating a spiritual or conscious evolution within humanity, right? We are going from feminine, right, in this age of Isis and all of these worship that you see with the Sumerians, things of that nature during the Taurian age. And that would also be what we would probably consider a primordial age, or maybe even pre-primordial age, where everything was kind of coming together. And what we refer to as the gods, in my opinion and my belief, is us, right, in these past ages, okay? Us in each age, during each element, during each cycle, having a different conscious manifestation as a whole. Going from this grounded, primordial place, this feminine, spiritual place, to this masculine fighter element, which is a magical, spiritual age as well, taking the masculine and feminine together. And we know that numerology, which is the code of the matrix, if you will, the essence of the matrix, if you will, supports all of this, right? The number for masculine energy is 1. The number for feminine energy is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3, the Trinity, is the number for the child, right? Which is the age of Horus, Jesus, the Son of God, the Piscean age, the child being born. Well, now we are in a new age, right? An Aquarian age. An Aquarian age being, and if you look at all the biblical prophecies, things like you'll hear, behold, he's coming on the clouds, right? The clouds referring to consciousness, talking about this appearance of the sun, S-U-N, of man coming back, right? And within this, you're high as fuck. Well, that's good. And with this sun coming back, the return of this Christ, or this Christos, which means this anointing, which is all really about our sacred secretion from our pineal glands, in this altered state of being, this altered state of consciousness, we come into the Aquarian age. And if you look at the attributes of Aquarius, it is all about technology, which we're now seeing the technological mechanisms of the world. Really, they're accelerating at such a fast pace, with artificial intelligence and D-Wave and quantum computing and neural networks and all of this. It almost seems to be like, we are biologically transitioning, in a technological age as well. It's like we're starting to see now that we are a form of artificial intelligence as well, right? And that we may even be creating the next mutation of humanity with AI and technology, right? And fixed water sign entering Aquarius. Well, you think about Christ when they asked him, like, how we would know when the age had ended, and the new age began. They said, when you see the man carrying a pail of water, follow him into his house. He was talking about his astrological house, the man carrying the pail of water, which is, a representation of us, right? It's man. I believe it's only Virgo and Aquarius. It's very few of the zodiacal signs that actually have the representation of a man. Most of them are represented by animals, right? Which kind of says something to our carnal nature and all of that. But this means that we have now mastered the element of water, right? We've now mastered the element of water, going into the astrological house of Aquarius, right? We're seeing this be supportive of that energy by technology, AI, D-Wave, quantum computing, neural networks, so on and so forth, like I just mentioned. We're also seeing now this shift from this Piscean mentality, which, remember, Pisces is the two fish, right? It's, the two fish, as above, so below. It's dualistic in nature. And we've seen that, all throughout the Piscean age, everything was polarized and divisive, was it not? We had, the light and the dark, good and evil, red and blue, left and right, right? Republican, Democrat, Muslims, Christians, and it was ruled by religion as well, right? Because Pisces rules religion, and we now see religion losing its thunder as we shift into this new age as well. Aquarius is not just about consciousness and the ether. It's also about the collective. So we see a shift in mentality, shifting from the individual being more about the persona and now being more about the collective as a whole. It's also about a societal reconstruction too. You also see societies being reconstructed, right, in the way we perceive societal norms. And this can go in a multitude of ways. I mean, if you just think about some of the smaller things like transgender and transhumanism, everything's trans, right? Like, we're kind of shifting back into that universal mentality, or that sexless, which I do believe we were in a similar type of state, in our angelic state, in previous cycles before we separated and divided into masculine, feminine, male, female. And we still all have masculine, feminine within us. We still know, by, the 7 principles that gender, it actually rules. It's one of the laws of creation, right? That's how everything operates, with that plus and minus, right? We do live in a dualistic reality because we need that opposition. We need that opposing force, that resistance, to actually hold reality and hold this space together, So no matter how much they want to try to convince you that none of us have a sex, that's never going to happen in a physical manifestation until we leave biological bodies, right? Once we go into like transgender and we're, robots or some shit like that, then I guess maybe that would be something else. It's nice to see you up here, 73, James Dunn. I do appreciate everybody for joining me, by the way. So make sure if you come into the chat tonight that you hit the thumbs up. It does help. I am on YouTube, and the algorithms they're ridiculous now. It's basically non-existent, so. But as we shift into this age, and I've talked about this, and the Mayans talked about this too, right? When they had their long count and the Bach tunes and all that shit. They talked about 2012, and you guys remember December 21st, 2012, right? The winter solstice and that. And I would love to see people's comments on this too. And if you see it live, I want to see your live comments in the chat. And if you catch this on the flip side, I would love to see what, you did during 2012. Were you shook by all of the things that were taking place? I'm not going to lie. I was a kid back then. I was very young. I was probably, like 20, 24 or something like that. And I do remember, kind of like being worried, like, because we had all of this talk about the end of the world and, shit like that, the end of this age. And it went back from this ancient culture that was so, they appear to be technologically advanced. A lot of the ancient astronaut theories revolve around the Mayans because of the different, architecture that they had, you know, with stone that we still can't replicate none of the shit that the ancient cultures did today, you know, which kind of lets you know that whatever age they were existing in, they had powers of like levitation and shit like that, you know. And it makes sense if you think about like an Aries age, an age of fire, which fire represents magic, to be able to levitate. And you think about like the Ark of the Covenant and how it was the tribe of Levi, or the Levites, which levitate, Levites, right? That were the ones who actually carried the Ark, you know. And we also know that these are all allegories too for, you know, consciousness within us. The Ark is within the brain, the medulla oblongata, and all that shit as well, right? We know all of this. And why do we know all of this? Because everything in this reality is a mirrored projection, right? We know also in the book of Genesis, it says, in the beginning we were made in the image of the Elohim. If we look at the Hebraic roots, or the etymology of that, it means phantom, a projection, or an illusion, right? So it's saying that we are an image of something of a higher state of being, a higher state of consciousness, and the Elohim being the supreme magistrates or the sons of God, right? Meaning the angels, the watchers, the messengers, the luminary, the princes, the planets, so on and so forth. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but the principalities, powers, and dominions, right? Which is our higher selves, in essence. You know, when you think about Israel, he who wrestles with God, it's also Elohim, meaning supreme magistrates. He who wrestles, you know, with those principalities, powers, and dominions. You know, they're not going to teach you none of that shit in church. I mean, that's just not going to happen. If anybody even goes to church at this point, I feel like, you know, Christianity is dying fast. We do see, and I feel like by the numbers, Islam is rising, and I believe it will continue to rise, you know, over the next period of time. It'll probably be one of the most prominent, if not the most prominent religion in the world. Yes, we are made in the image. Harrison Ford, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jehovah. Yeah, well, and Jehovah means Jove given. It's actually Jupiter, right? It's Jupiter. And I did videos on this about, you know, Jupiter, and the stories of Enki and Enlil, and, you know, how Jesus bore our stripes, Jupiter being the striped planet, you know, and how he also translates to Michael the archangel, Thor, Zeus, so on and so forth, right? Hold on one moment, guys. So basically what we're seeing is, through these cosmic cycles, everything being energy, you know, us being energy, us essentially being batteries, right? We are conscious batteries. We are electromagnetic beings. We see all of these cycles accompanied with shifts in the sun, in these solar cycles, where there is an increase in solar activity. And whenever there is an increase in solar activity, we see an increase in brain activity, right? We see humans increase in intelligence and awareness. We see our lifespans increase, so on and so forth. Matter of fact, during the lull of the last couple centuries or whatever, and the lower lifespans, it was a minimum of solar activity, right? Go figure. And if we look way back at a lot of these different ancient civilizations and cultures, and their interpretation of history, right? Of history. You know, they talk about us having multiple suns to accompany the different ages or the different cycles that we go through. That each cycle is made up of 4 destructions, one representing for each of the elements, okay? And that each of these destructions takes place over, basically, it's like a 26,000 year cycle or whatever. And then we get a new star. And that there are, I believe it's 9 or 10 cycles or some shit like that. So think about the count of the planets or the planetary spheres. We have the 7 main planetary spheres, and then we have Uranus and Neptune as well, right? And if we count Pluto, you know, which we have to think too, all of these celestial spheres do have an impact on our consciousness, whether people believe that or not. And within the study of astrology, I know a lot of people are skeptical about astrology, and I'm not telling you to live your life according to astrology. I'm telling you that astrological influences absolutely do have an effect on consciousness, and they do have an effect on the world around us. If you look at what actually is the Ark of the Covenant, and I want you to hear me out too, if you've never heard this before, some of you have. We are actively imposing on our reality. We're actively impressing upon the reality, okay? But as we do that too, we are actively being impressed upon by the spectrum of light. So think about the electromagnetic field, or the firmament, which is another word for arc, right? As a prism, right? As a lens, as the collective third eye, or the collective lens of all of us, right? The collective human consciousness. And think of it as a prism. Whenever you shine light through a prism, what do you see? You see the light separated, right? You see that rainbow, and you can see the bands of light being separated. There are 7 colors of the rainbow. These are the 7 main planetary spheres. These 7 main planetary spheres represent the 7 chakras, right? The 7 days of the week. They represent the 7 colors of the rainbow. And you think about the Ark of the Covenant. The covenant is represented by that rainbow. And then, like I said, that arc is that prism, or that lens, right? So that Ark of the Covenant is telling you, just like when we were made in the image of the Elohim, supreme magistrates, angels being princes, planets, stars, luminaries, right? Made in the image. It's a projection of that energy, you know? And those are like the 7 sons of Satan, the watchers, the messengers, so on and so forth. And people will always find a way to argue with these things, but it truly is it is the truth. This is just this is how it is. And because of that, there are also a number of other influential celestial spheres in the heavens as well. You can think about the heavens as like a lattice. Now, we have the firmament that separates the waters above the firmament and the waters below the firmament, right? So it's talking about a dimensional space. Right? We are here below the firmament in a dimensional space in what we would call probably the underworld. You know, the underworld meaning the shadow world, which is ruled by the lunar sphere. And that's why when you see in the Kabbalah, everything comes down to that lunar sphere, which represents, in your body-wise, your genitalia, right? And think about it. Everything within this realm, or this reality, is about reproduction. This is the reproductive, Vesica Pisces, or, soul trap, as people like to call it, Yeah, I've missed all of you guys too. I really do appreciate all of you. I really do. You guys have been great to me over the years, so, honestly, I couldn't ask for a better group of people. And I'll tell you what, just, this particular family, this particular group, especially here on YouTube, you guys have, you guys are mind-blowing when it comes to just the amount of intelligence, the amount of awareness you have, and, just how giving and kind you've been to me. So I appreciate all of you guys. I just want to say that, So where was I at? Yeah, so these celestial spheres, and we see like with, astrology, which is the oldest science in the world. Each one of these astrological influences, every star is in essence giving off a vibration of light and sound, a frequency of light and sound, right? So according to whatever was in a particular position when you were conceived and born and stuff, that is the algorithmic makeup of who you are. That's what dictates the influence of everyday life here on Earth, and we see it manifest in a variety of ways, uniquely through each one of us. And that zodiacal wheel is the larger manifestation of a whole, right, that we see happening to the collective. Each part of that wheel is represented by an archetype, and that's what we call, the zodiac, or the signs. And we see, the Aquarius representing this particular age we're entering into now. That's why we're now seeing the shift into the ether, the collective consciousness, technology, so on and so forth. It's because that is the most prominent energy that's being filtered in through that prism into the image we call humanity. You can agree or disagree. It's neither here nor there for me. I just recommend you researching it yourself if you disagree. Instead of just being vehemently, in opposition to something, understand why you oppose it. Don't just oppose it because your religion told you to. Now, I believe at the end of each one of these cycles, right? And you can think about like the fall of Atlantis, the Lemurians, and all of this. What is it called? What is the book that we did? Something with the Children of the Law of One, right? And they were talking about the origins of humanity in this book, from the primordial place where we used to be able to be free in our collective conscious creation, and we created Earth as like a playground. Basically, we are God, all of us, being a fractal or a fragment of that infinite. We created this place to be able to play and create freely and experience physical reality, physical manifestation, right? And what happened was, when we came down into this creation, we started mixing ourselves and mingling ourselves with the things that we like the most. So that's why you see in like Egyptian deities, you'll see like a man with a dog head and shit, or, a bird head, and these were like the original entities or deities, because they actually got trapped into that when they solidified that reality, when they became that and created it, into this density. Their consciousness got trapped in that space, according to the Children of the Law of One. And that would be the concept of fallen angels and all of that, right? And that's why they developed demonic tendencies, because they had animalistic natures. Think about an animal. An animal just, literally, it survives, right? It fucks, it eats, it sleeps, it's all about its survival, its physical survival. If you think about demons and shit, it's, always about the carnal. It's preying off of carnal energy, right? And that the rest of us came down here basically on like a rescue mission to save our brothers and sisters, or the rest of us, in this conscious manifestation that we call Earth. And you can believe this story or not, whether you believe, I don't believe it was an accident. I believe we did this intentionally to create beings. It was to create an offspring of some collective universal energy. And think about it, even a piece of the infinite is infinite, right? So if I'm God, this oneness, this wholeness, this creator, and I'm fucking immortal and I can't die, and I can't even experience myself because I'm one, right? The best way to have a cool experience would be to fragment myself into multiple, beings, to make myself be mortal, and then take each one of those seeds, if you will, and grow them up into a God themselves, into a fullness of that being itself. Which is why we're called sons of God. Right? Or sons of man in this state. So if you really truly think about it, it makes a ton of sense, like why a creator or why a consciousness would want to do something like this. But in order for that to happen, you would have to drop down, or a fall in consciousness, to a low state, a low density, the lowest state possible, and go back up, right, consciously and dimensionally to that source or to that wholeness, right? In each of these cycles being like a conscious evolution or progression right? Energetically, like giving you a little ingredient, a little piece, evolving you to become, you know, a version of that wholeness that you originally were in that original state. It's kind of nurturing that growth, if you will. Now, when we think about like a critical mass, um, one of the things that I think about the most is like how in each cycle, you know, it starts off where the cycle begins, and as that new energy enters into the cycle, um, it's slow, right? The progression is slow. Your consciousness or the collective consciousness essentially is overwhelmed by the previous energy of the previous cycle. So if you just came out of a Piscean age, everybody's still in that water element. Everybody's still in that Piscean mentality, that age of religion and so on and so forth, right? That duality. So piece by piece, as this new energy, this new consciousness, this new frequency begins to trickle in, you know, it starts with one, and it's like the 100th monkey, you know, syndrome, or the 100th monkey effect, you know, where one monkey picks it up, which would be like me, and another monkey picks it up, which would be Back Assward's Weird World, then Diane Livermore, then DF, then James Dunn, then, you know, so on and so forth, and we have all these different people that are picking shit up, and each one of them that are picking these things up are then projecting that out into the world. The more that we speak about it, the more that we talk about it, right? We are emanating and cut out there. We are emanating an electromagnetic field. We're giving off a frequency. We're giving off an energy, right? Each one of us giving off an energy, each one of us giving off a frequency, each one of us giving off a signal. You know, we're constantly communicating telepathically. You know, that's why they have things like, when you think about, what's it called? Backwards masking, right? Where we say something, you know, forwards, but if you reverse our speech, our subconscious is also talking backwards. It's like a two-way radio that we always have, right? Because we have two sides of our brain, the left and the right. We're always in opposition with ourselves. We need that opposition, we need that resistance in order to hold the reality together, essentially, right? So that's always going to be the nature of this level of existence, right? So as we transmit something, and think about it, if you like, and think about vibes, just vibes in general. If you walk into a room and you feel bad vibes, it's because somebody is giving off negativity. They're having negative thoughts, which are then, you know, consciously being transmitted to you, and you feel that, right? It's being vibrated out through their aura, you know. And think about like all of the, you know, the C-19 shit, you know, and the social distancing and all of that, and you had to have a 6-foot radius, right, that we had to keep apart from each other. Why? It's because our electromagnetic field has a 6-foot radius, right? There really was a lot more to that than what many people thought. And, you know, one of the things I feel like was actually taking place during that period of time, you know, was them trying to prevent, you know, the ascension of humanity. And remember, Christ said that when we see him, we will be like him, right? Transfigured. And this transfiguration is like, you know, us shifting from, you know, this state into a higher dimensional state, a higher state of conscious being. Fight against love. Yeah, they were fighting against love. They were fighting against a lot more than that. They were, you know, if you got to think like, if the powers that be were living, you know, their power structures were set up in the old energy, in the old paradigm, which was built on opposition and duality, right? Think about that. If it's built on opposition and duality, you're going to lose power. You're going to fucking lose control if people start to unite. If people stop dividing over fucking race and sex and political orientation and all of that. So they had to, you know, stir the pot as much as possible, you know, who's jabbed and who's not and blah, 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 right? To keep us separated, to keep us at one another's throat, because that polarity was allowing them to dominate us, was allowing them to suppress us and keep us under control, you know. For every action, there is a reaction. This reality is made up in a balance like that. It's all through a balanced state. And if you think about, all of them that really are, what we would call the hidden hand or is in control, they are Luciferian, and they understand this more than anything. Luciferian represented by the Baphomet, right? You notice it's like got a tits and a dick and, all of that. An angel and a demon, it represents that, right? Which is our paradoxical reality, And that's why you see, like in Satanism, what we call reverse manifestation, where, it's all upside down crosses and, everything is, anti-Christ, because they're trying to, manifest the opposite. They know that if they put on the negative end of the scale, on the other end of the scale, they're going to get, something totally different back, right? Which now we're seeing that energy die. We're now going into what will be, I believe, it's going to be a age ruled by Neptune. Neptune is going to be the most prominent energetic planet, as opposed to, Saturn's rule, and what we would call the Saturn Moon Matrix. Which, once you step outside of the soul system of Saturn, you start to step into the dream world, of Neptune and Uranus and all of this, and it's like more of like an astral world or an astral realm and more of a conscious state of existence anyways. We no longer have that barrier that keeps us locked into that 666, which is time, right? The construct of time, We're now outside of the construct of time, or exiting the construct of time, and that's why you're now seeing the reality in itself becoming more mutable, and we are now able to manifest and attract things at a way more intensified, rate. And that's what you call like fucking instant karma and shit, and you see it. I don't know if you guys have experienced it yourself, but I definitely have, to where you see, things, attract to you a lot faster than they would have just fucking 5 years ago. And it's because of this acceleration. The more people that come to the awareness, the more people that adopt the Aquarian energy, the more people that tap in and tune into that frequency, the bigger the signal gets, right? And the concept of like a star seed or something like that, in my opinion, these are larger fragments of stars or souls, right? Celestial beings. And these beings, and a lot of people, they'll talk about like, they feel they were put here with a purpose. And these were like the originals. These were the people that were out here like, posting and speaking and sharing, awareness before it was trendy and cool like it's becoming now. Before it was acceptable like it's becoming now. When they would get targeted by the fucking government for it. When, their family would fucking not want nothing to do with them. When their friends would turn their back. When their wives and husbands would leave them. When their kids would stop talking to them for it. These were the first people. They had to go out there. Remember, Christ said they hated me first. And you can see why. Because in the beginning it was just one. It started with one person. Saying your father is the father of lies, talking about Saturn, right? The Saturnian ruler of this planet is like saying, no, your God is the God of lies. It's a physical reality. All these religions you're worshiping, that's not God. And they burn people, fucking, the Catholic Church has burned people at the stake for a long time, for this shit. Honestly. Yeah, hit the thumbs up if you're in the chat, please. I really would appreciate it. And they were burning people at the stake for a long time for this shit. Just for thinking differently, thinking outside of the fucking box. And, that's a really sad thing. But it had to be like that, I guess, because, the more that... The more the people were martyred for this, the more people knew that it was real. The more people knew that there was something to it, that there was substance to it, if people were willing to die for their beliefs, And the Bible talks about being persecuted and stuff. Now, most Christians think like the persecution is like, you know, them going to the guillotine for fucking Jesus and all that, which I do not believe. I believe it's more of what we've seen, you know, being TIs and, you know, all of that, targeted individuals, um, and think about like, you know, the pandemic or scamdemic and all of that, and how people lost their jobs, and, you know, for the refusal to give in or capitulate to the system, you know. That to me is what I feel like we're witnessing. And isn't it funny, every time I mention the pandemic at all, I see the numbers drop by at least a few, you know. People don't like to talk about real shit. And that's just the truth. People can't handle real shit. You know, it scares them. It takes them away from their comfort zone. You know, we get comfortable with our beliefs. Hey, brother, nice to see you. We get comfortable with the way that we think. We get comfortable with the way that we perceive the world. It makes us feel safe and in control. You know? When people start to talk about these types of things, it shakes up what we believe. You know? And especially if we, you know, you're being told that you're accountable. You know, that it's not a new world order that you can go run and blame for all the problems taking place, that it's you. That you have given your power away. That you continue to give your power to them by saying they are in control of you. Right? Or saying my voice don't matter, you know, like, it's you choosing to be powerless. So you're accountable for the result, you know. Your silence is your compliance, right? You are being complicit when you're being silent. And that's just a fact. And you see a lot of like the new age shit too, you know, and I can't stand most of the new age spiritual community and the airy fairy shit, because it's just so one-sided, and it's just half of it, you know. Well, I don't deal with negativity and blah blah blah, and it's like we have both. You know, we have both. It's like, you know, why would you choose to be blind and see out of one eye your entire life? You know, because you don't like what the other eye is able to see. And then they want to talk about people doing their shadow work. It's like, well, how can you do shadow work if you won't even look at darkness? You know, it's just all nonsense, and it's just trendy shit that people call self-care on TikTok and YouTube and all that, because it sounds cool and makes them sound smart. You know, and that's why they develop, and all they're truly doing is spiritualizing the ego, and that's why they feel like they're elevated above other people. And they'll call people that are asleep, you know, sheeple and sheep, and they make fun of them, and it's like, you know, they have this, you know, superior, like as if they're superior to everyone else now, because they have a little bit of knowledge, or they're conscious, you know. It's like, you're not even conscious at all. You're being fucking fed that by your algorithm, dumbass, and you're not even thinking for yourself to start with. You know, you're just breaking an old indoctrination to be indoctrinated into something new. You know. No, I can't get with that at all. It's annoying as fuck. Can't stand it. Can't stand it. It's bullshit. And I said this the other day, nobody lives like that either. So all this guru mentality shit is also horse shit. Sorry, humans do drugs, they drink, they fight, they fuck, they argue, they cuss, they lie, they cheat, they steal, they have habits, they have, you know, they have hang-ups, they have things about them. All of them, including spiritual teachers. So when you try to put somebody on this fake ass pedestal, because religion has taught you, because they were all fake, right, playing a role, you know, these pastors and preachers and shit, you know, as they stood at that phallic podium, you know, spewing their fucking bullshit all over, you know, their throughout their sermon, pretending to have a perfect marriage and to be so selfless and giving, you know. When all they ever said was, I'll pray for you. you know, as they collected your dough. Um, you know, that image, which is a false reality, a false illusion, a projection, which is what you see now on social media. Every spiritual asshat out there does the same thing. Every fucking goofy bunhead out there does the same thing. I'm meditating and I'm tapping and da 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 da. It's like, shut the fuck up, you know? It's like, we know you're full of shit. Matter of fact, we would like you a lot better if you didn't act like you were so holy moly, you know? We know better. We see through the bullshit now. It's becoming clear now. And the more of us that begin to awaken, the stronger that frequency and the stronger that vibration gets. And this is the pole shift. This is the pole shift. A pole shift is a polarity shift, right? It's a polarity shift. Now I want you to think about the actual magnetic poles and how they've migrated, right, over the last 100 and something years as we shifted into the age of Aquarius. So you always see, because this is a mirrored reality, and because consciousness, we project every aspect of the reality. So you see it manifest in every aspect. You see it in the stars, you see it collectively, you see it internally, you see it physically, individually, spiritually, intellectually, so on and so forth, right? You even see it in the fucking geography, right? In topography of the land. The same story playing out over and over and over, because it is the collective imprint, right? And this is evident by the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, right? It's that energetic signature being imprinted on every aspect of the reality, because we're projecting all of that, you know, consciously and as a collective, as a whole. Well, as we individually project the reality, as we individually project that frequency, and it gets bigger and bigger, and more people hear that message, right, that we're blowing out, right, that vibration that we're sending out. Well, if they're at a lower state and that vibration is a high frequency, it begins to lift them up, you know? It begins to disarm and destroy the distortion, right? Because the truth can't stand, you know? I mean, the lies can't stand up against the truth, right? The truth will always stand on its own. So even the most ignorant, you know, bullshit motherfucker, you know, eventually, you know, they have to admit when they've seen enough, you know, that what they believed was a lie. When it becomes so self-evident and becomes proven to them time and time again, right? They start to see, like, oh, maybe the government is lying. Oh, maybe this is bad. Oh, maybe that, you know, maybe all the religions are the same. You know, once we begin to understand, as knowledge increases, as we are able to tap in more to, you know, consciousness, more into our intellect, and access more of ourselves, you know, we're able to have more information to arm ourselves with against the lies. More and more of us collectively come together, we amplify this signal, and as all of us do eventually begin to come to this conclusion, it becomes the loudest voice, right? As it becomes the loudest voice, we reach a point called critical mass, right, where there's no turning back. Where the revelation, the revealing, remember the apocalypse means revealing, right? Enough has been revealed to where there's never going back to the old world. And you know, that's why with COVID and all this shit, you've seen the new normal. And think about it, if you invert that word Devok 91, right? It's like destruction and all this shit. Like, all of this was symbolic, because consciousness is always at play. It's at play, always, you know? Whether we're aware of it or not, there is, you know, there's always that higher self, that higher voice that is working in the background, right? Whether your persona or your ego, you know, has any clue of what the fuck's going on or not, you know, the God frequency does, you know, it does. And it's up to each one of us to raise ourselves up to the point to where we can hear our own voice in that God frequency, to where we recognize our own selves again, because we've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten that we're the ones, calling the shots. We've forgotten that we're the ones, making all of this happen. But now we're starting to remember, and we're remembering putting the body back together. This is the body of Christ, the anointed spiritual body, finally coming back as one whole mechanism, moving collectively together. And it means we're starting into a new paradigm, a new world. It's a new creation, a new age, a golden age, right? And in this golden age, I believe we're going to see more of ourselves unlock as well. Where we seem like in these old ages, where they built pyramids and shit and probably had gifts of levitation and all of that, will probably now, and I know now, telepathy, what we call extrasensory perception, psychic abilities and gifts. I love that. The last generation, I love that actually. Remember who you were before the world told you who you should be. And that is what it all boils down to, right? Remembering who you truly are. Remembering who you truly are. Remembering who we truly are. And we're back to the original question of why are we here? And in the Celestine prophecy, which I'm going to do a video on it, it talks about like how we can see history as a whole now and see that we needed the age of Pisces in order to master the physical and make airplanes and production, all that, that way we could focus on, we no longer had to focus on physical survival, Now we focus back on where we started, to that original question of why are we all here? Why are we all here? What is the reason for all of this? What is the end goal? We drink from the cup of forgetfulness. Well, it's the veil of forgetfulness, right? And that veil is a covering of the mind that's being removed, right? We're now having the scales taken off of our eyes, And the Bible says, I'll cast my net, gather mine together, refining them by the fires of affliction. That net, that's an energetic net. It's a field, right? When we're having the scales removed from our eyes, we were purified by going through those dark nights of the soul, that circumambulation where we're orbiting within ourselves like an onion, deeper and deeper internally, right? Until we know thyself, right? And once we know ourselves, we're able to know all. We're able to know each other. We're able to finally love ourselves, which allows us to love others. We're able to forgive ourselves, which allows us to forgive others. I think one of the craziest, things about all of this, is how many people, even though it's become so evident, to me at least, that reality is not what we thought it was, that we are far more powerful and far more capable than we ever believed, how many people still are non-believers, and I feel like it's just being stubborn at this point. If you don't believe at this point, that you have a bigger purpose, that there's something far deeper, going on. And I feel like you're just going against the grain. You're going against the tide, and you're going against the wind, just to do so. It's out of stubbornness, out of ego. Not willing to admit that maybe you got it wrong. Not willing to admit that maybe you didn't know everything. And I'm not saying I do, or I'm not saying anybody in this chat does. We don't. And that's why it says humble thyself and be exalted, right? Because when you humble yourself and admit, I don't know shit, that's when knowledge becomes available. That's when you truly begin to learn. When you stop thinking you've got it all figured out. When you stop thinking that, you know it all. It's like in recognizing, like, you know, the whole thing about Jesus and, you know, how he loves sinners and all of that. Why is that? It's like recognizing that you're flawed. That's what makes you Christ-like, you know? And that's why I feel like the greatest teachers are, you know, the best students. Think about it. The biggest fuck-ups in the world are the best examples, not only of how not to do something, but when you see them overcome, you know, it gives you hope. You're like, if that idiot can do it, then I know I can. You know? And I feel like if there's anything like I could ever give to the world, I feel like I hope I can do that, because I've definitely feel like I've proven no matter how much knowledge you have, you know, it doesn't mean anything, you know, unless you apply it internally, you know, and that all of us are a work in progress. You know, and I want people to know too that tomorrow is never promised. Nothing is ever guaranteed, so stop waiting on your moment, because your moment will never come. You know, it's up to you now, you know, to do what you were put here to do. And only you know what that is. Don't ever let anybody else tell you what your purpose is. You know your purpose. If you dig down in your heart, you know what it is. You know, and don't create it off of what society does or you think it should be based on society. Because that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Some of us are just here to love. Just live. You know, and the most powerful thing that we can do is be us. The most powerful vibration you can give off is one of being unique and genuine. And that's the truth. People say it's love. No, it's actually being, you know, real. That's a more powerful frequency, by being authentic. You know, and a lot of people over the years have not liked me. You know, I've had struggles with addictions. I'm fucking, you know, womanizer, fucking cuss too much, listen to devil music, tarot, astrology. So people have not liked me over the years, but it's who I am. It's who I am. You know, and I'm so grateful for the people that's loved me in spite of that. You know, and I'm thankful for the opportunity just to be with all of you right now in the moment. So, I do want to thank each and every one of you for joining me. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. I didn't want to do too much, too long. If you would like to subscribe, please hit the subscribe. Follow me Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn. You can donate, PayPal, Cash App, Facebook Messenger, or Patreon.com, Best Damn Podcast Official. And that's greatly appreciated. Or book a personal tarot reading by texting 513-393-2396 or email therealbestdampodcast@gmail.com. Please share this link. Hit the thumbs up, comment. All that stuff helps with the algorithms. I'm not trying to get rich or famous, you know, but the donations and the readings absolutely help me big time. And sharing it and, you know, the likes and comments help more people to see it. So I hope you guys appreciate it. I hope you got something out of it. And if not, maybe you will the next one. Check out, you know, I'm on all the platforms, so check out the content. Thank you so much, guys, for all that you do for me and just everything. I love you all, and I hope you have a good evening. I'll see you next time. Peace.